I'll also share my screen. Okay, and people are joining in. For all those who joined us, welcome. Great to have you. We have a few more minutes before we start, but good to have you here. You can get some water or coffee or tea. Hello, welcome all those who joined us. Good to have you here. We're waiting for a few more people to sign up, and then we'll start. We'll give them 2 or 3 more minutes. I see that a lot of people are joining now, so we'll start in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Okay, so while people are joining still, so first of all, welcome everybody. Great to have you here. We have with us Kalina and Hannah. You're welcome to say hi yourselves. Basically, we kind of put up this webinar for us to basically share with customer marketers in general and marketers also from all types what others have been doing now with Corona kind of virus going out, and a lot of people in a lot of countries totally changing their way of doing business, working from home. So the idea for us was to take some best practices that you'll hear from Hannah and Kalina that they've really, it's not that they prepared for this situation, nobody did. They kind of shifted their whole way of doing business in the last 2 to 4 weeks and took quick actions, some of those kind of trial and error, iterative actions, which is, you have to be experimental these days, and they're going to talk about that. So first of all, I'm super happy and excited to have them here. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Kalina, for spending your time and sharing your best practices with everybody that's joining us today. Truly appreciate it, and I think that people are going to have great content with this. Just so we talk about our agenda today and some housekeeping notes for all of those of you, and then we can start. So first of all, there's going to be there's a Q&A in Zoom, like a questions and answer button. Try to concentrate your questions there. That way we can kind of go through them in a more structured manner than in the chat, which is kind of more hectic to manage. Each speaker is going to have questions and answer stops within their talk. At the end of their talk, it's going to be, we're going to, as much as we can with time allowing it, we're going to try to answer all your questions through the whole session, and also we're going to keep some time at the end for that. We will share the recording at the end. So we're recording this, and we'll share the recording at the end of it with everybody. And we're also going to have a poll in the middle, and out of all the people who actually complete the poll, the survey, we're going to have 10 prizes. You could choose between a book, Fanocracy, about turning customers into fans, or a 1-hour consultancy with us about customer advocacy. So you kind of can choose your what you want to do with that winning. So 10 people, you should all fill the poll. We anyway appreciate your time and those answers, but I mean, 10 will win. So for our agenda today, Kalina will kick it off. She'll talk about herself. She's heading the customer marketing at Signifyd, and she's going to talk specifically about their virtual event. Hannah will take it then. She's managing the community and customer marketing at Splash. And she's going to talk about what they did with moving into virtual user groups, which is interesting, and other stuff. And I'll go last, talking about what we see with other companies doing around digital touch points and taking the current situation for digital engagement. As I mentioned, we'll have Q&A in the middle and brainstorm and Q&A at the end. And with that, I'm giving it to you, Kalina.
Thanks, Gail. Let me just share my screen with you. Okay, can everyone see that? Perfect. So hello, everyone. I'm Kalina Bryant. I am the Director of Customer Marketing at Signifyd. Today, I want to talk to you about how to transition from in-person customer events to virtual. We've had some good success in the last month or so, so we'd love to show you those findings and how we actually got there and what we're doing to move forward in the upcoming months. So today, we don't have much time, but I want to make sure I outline the virtual marketing strategy, highlight our virtual conference, and then highlight some of the 5 key takeaways from that virtual conference. And so what you see here on the screen, this is actually my strategy that I was sticking with for the remaining of 2020. And this was including in-person meetups, case studies, Influitive, which is our community. And so what I always try to do before launching anything throughout the year is make sure that my programs align with the company's values and their expectations for the year. And so on our end, we wanted to definitely drive enterprise penetration, which was engaging our customers, figuring out how to get additional upsells and new business. And those key programs that align with that was our Flow meetups, which are customer gatherings throughout different cities, executive dinners, where we would kind of combine our partners, our executive customers, and a few prospects, our referral program, and mainly our customer advisory board, which entailed an in-person meeting. With that being said, this was all mapped out to actually kick off in April, but then we had something called COVID-19, which sort of, changed things for us, which is okay. And then also we have case studies that are always on our map, whether it's a private case study, external case study, a video customer video. And then also making sure that we continue to engage our community, which is Flow Forward. And then also figuring out how to continue to engage our top accounts and drive that net retention and upsell. And so with that being said, figuring out that we couldn't have those in-person meetups and actually have that surprise and delight with our customers in person, we took a step back and said, okay, what can we actually focus on? And so what you see here is 3 main things that the entire marketing team agreed on that really focused on customer marketing, which was our virtual user conference, our case study and referral program, and also our virtual customer happy hours, which I'll talk more about. And so if we take a step back, our virtual user conference actually came into conversation in late December. We really wanted to get into a place where we were ready to do an in-person user conference. And our strategy from a customer marketing perspective was, let's start off with a virtual user conference to see if we have enough collateral and enough customers interested to join. And our goal was to have 150 attendees. And we figured if we can have 150 attendees, a combination of customers, partners, and prospects, then we can start planning for that in-person user conference. And ironically, with COVID-19, we were actually launching our virtual user conference on March 12th. So we were already in preparation of the vendor that we selected, the content, the amount of speakers, and that range from partner speakers and customers and some of our internal product individuals. And with that being said, it was perfect timing because that week we received a lot of notifications of conferences canceling or being postponed, and many individuals wondered how are they doing this virtual user conference. And so what ended up being trial and error for us actually put us on a good standing point to be in a position where we thought, you know, marketing is in a good stance for us. Customer marketing actually has a good position. And so with the user conference, some of our findings, we realized, number one, we hit our goal. We had a little over 150 attendees. In our user conference, ironically, we spent about $12,000 for the actual venue and prizes, et cetera. And we didn't actually know if we were going to have a ROI or return on this. It was strictly a gamble. And then within 1 week, we actually had pipeline generated from this user conference, and we closed one of our largest deals this month, which was around 300K that strictly derived from our user conference. We worked closely with our sales organization and with our customer success organization, and started figuring out what is some of the pipeline or some of the accounts that we haven't been able to speak with. And we figured we would invite these individuals to actually get an understanding as to not what our company and our product could offer, but really have an understanding as to what our customers are actually seeing with us, allowing them to highlight their journey, and then also allowing our partners to share their story as well. And so turned out quite well. We have received a lot of feedback from our user conference. Our CEO is actually asking, can we do a user conference on a quarterly basis? I don't know if we're there yet, if we have the bandwidth to do a user conference or virtual user conference every quarter, but it is definitely now on the map for us to do at least twice a year. So I think that that's a really good turnaround. And I think when we did the virtual conference, especially with COVID-19 coming around, it actually gave our customers something to look forward to. The engagement was extremely high. We had feedback all the way from, let me learn more about your product, but more so, let me actually talk to your marketing department to see what else are you guys doing to keep your customers engaged, which I found very important. And I think it allowed us to work cross-functionally with our sales department and also with our customer success department. You know, given the time that we're in, you know, a lot of members are just uncertain. They don't know how to actually continue their day-to-day. And I think that the user conference actually gave people, number one, hope, and number two, a little bit of creativity to see how can we think outside of the box. And so I think that this is a really good example. Go ahead.
Just so you know that we have a few questions asking regarding which tool did you use for the virtual conference?
Yeah, good question. So we use vFairs. I have some information to talk about in the next slide about that. vFairs was a really, you know, it was a good solution. I think that we had to be a bit hands-on on how we wanted the design to look. We have some of, if you wanted to see the virtual user conference on demand, I can also send that link, but you can actually see how the look and feel was, the animation that went on within that product, and the Q&A, and how we actually did those sessions to make sure the customers and the partners that were presenting also felt included. And we also did a session where we had a live fireside chat with customers throughout the entire globe, also talking with one of my executives. And so just imagine 3 people in 3 different locations. It actually worked very well. So vFairs was our selection of the vendor. Any other questions?
Not at the moment.
Okay. And so the next big one that we are starting to focus on actually is virtual customer happy hours. Our virtual customer happy hour series has started based on, we were supposed to have a customer meetup this month actually in San Francisco. And the meetup usually consists of a large range of our customers, a few prospects, and a few partners. And we usually do a really nice dinner. We have a fireside chat with our customers. We allow time for happy hour and mingling, usually in a nice restaurant or a nice area where there's a rooftop, just to get people outside. You know, and usually it kicks off at 5:30 right after work, and it's usually a 3-hour segment to network. Given that we can't do that, we thought We had a really great customer speaker already lined up. And actually talking to the speaker, he said, you know, if we can do a webinar similar to your conference, he would be open to that. And so we thought, well, how can we get a bit creative with this webinar and not produce so many webinars? I think looking at the Valley, everyone has actually taken that lead on doing webinars. So we thought, well, what's one thing that brings everyone together with our in-person meetups? And we kick it off with a happy hour. We kick it off with networking and having a cocktail of your choice. So we're actually taking that step in outlining our Flow happy hour gatherings, which will take place on April 30th. And we're still keeping the fireside chat, and we're actually taking another step further of the first few registrants that we receive. We're actually sending them a really nice bottle of champagne to open and engage with us during the actual webinar. And so we're trying to look at everything that we do in person and outline how can we still segment this and get our customers together and get different prospects together to, of course, learn and engage with each other. But number two, how do we get people to still relax and feel excited? So we're actually taking a leap and starting a series that is strictly around virtual happy hours, cheersing each other's successes, having an opportunity to have Q&A and really have almost, I title it as almost a customer therapy session. So the registration looks really good right now, and I'm excited to see the turnout for that April 30th happy hour. But I think it's been a nice segment to, of course, we can't do those in-person meetups, but there's another alternative where you can still get that same feeling and that same engagement from your customers with the virtual aspect.
Kalina, so first of all, we have a few more questions, and we also need to shift soon to Hannah. So, one question was like, were all the sessions live or just fireside chat?
Good question. So with our virtual user conference, we had a mixture. We had some previously recorded sessions that we did all the recordings about 2 weeks in advance with the customers, and actually had those customers still join us online so they can have live Q&A. But the fireside chat was live. So any fireside chat that we had with the virtual conference was live, and any of the sessions were previously recorded.
Okay, great. The other question was like, do you have the customer happy hour open to all customers, a selected group? How did you select the group? If so, region, industry, revenue, whatnot?
Yeah, so it's all customers, but ideally, our customer guest speaker is based in Seattle. So the happy hour has been labeled as it's starting at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. But then as we continue the series, if we have a guest speaker that is based in the East Coast, then we would accommodate that schedule. But it's still open to all, but we just wanted to be mindful, since our guest speaker is based in a certain region, to make sure that we accommodate that happy hour schedule. So we're hoping that the registration looks really good right now, but we're hoping, obviously, we'll see the return on April 30th. And I'll be sure, usually what I do is every time we launch a new customer marketing initiative or program, I write a blog on it to show the pros and the cons of what worked and what didn't. So more to come there. Okay. And then lastly, I know we only have a few minutes, so let me just go to this slide here. If you guys are looking to do your virtual user conference, these are some of the key takeaways that I reflected with my team on. Some of the 5 key takeaways, of course, is picking the right vendor. I think that that's going to really make and break how much work you have to put into that virtual conference. So take the time. I would say do a few different interviews with the vendors, see what they can offer you, and that will really put you on the map. Once you sign that contract, you'll definitely understand that your virtual conference is actually real, it's happening. And I would say also choosing a theme. That's very important, because when you're working with so many different teams and working cross-functionally, you know, everyone's very excited to be involved in a virtual conference. Same thing with your customers, your partners is really good. Awareness. However, you have to make sure you stick to the same theme so you don't get lost in, you know, who wants what, and a lot of different feedback that's coming in. You'll get a lot of different questions, but if you stick to that one theme, I think it's easier for you to navigate and have a successful conference. And then also outlining your company goals ahead of time. For my company, we were just trying to figure out if we were ready for an in-person user conference. So we just wanted to make sure we had people registered and also in attendance. So make sure you outline that benchmark. So when you're actually done with that conference, you can sit back with your team and say, was this great or what can be improved? But at least you have those 2 or 3 bullet points to where you can look back on and say, yes, this was an awesome program. Let's continue to do this. And I would also say aligning with cross-functional teams is very key. For our virtual conference, we had 3 different segments. We had presentations from partners, presentations from customers, and also presentations from our internal stakeholders, all the way from customer success and our product department. So I would say that having as many people involved is great, but making sure that you set expectations ahead of time, because everybody is looking to be involved and they're looking to do a great job. So I think that working cross-functionally and really outlining step-by-step what the expectations are will set you off on a good path. And then lastly, I would say, when you pull off a virtual user conference, when you're finished, you have a sense of relief. So I would say you have relief, you have joy, everyone's excited, especially when you see the salespeople coming to you saying that they have follow-up conversations actually taking place. I think it's a wonderful feeling, but you want to make sure that you celebrate with the team, especially the marketing team, because they're behind the scenes really making sure that this will be a success. And there's so many different people involved. So really just taking that time to celebrate, give a debrief, because before you know it, you're going to be asked to do another one of these events. So you want to make sure you keep that healthy momentum going. And I'll go ahead and send a link that really goes into further detail on the 5 key takeaways. And I know we don't have much time. I need to pass it on to Hannah. So if you do have additional questions for me, Gail, I don't know if we could take a few more, but feel free to email me at kalina.bryant at signifyd.com, and I'm more than happy to take this offline.
Yeah, we'll do a few more, and also we'll have time at the end for more that come up. Thank you. So 2 questions around customer base, like how many customers do you have, if you want to answer on that? More specifically, how many did attend?
Yeah, good question. So we have different segments. So we have thousands of customers, but I focus mainly on our high touch accounts. So I would say we range from a couple thousand with our high touch. And when thinking about our actual virtual user conference, we really wanted to get them engaged. So I would say we had about 171 attendees, which, like I said before, our goal was just to get 150 registered. So we surpassed our goal. And then looking at the ROI, we actually didn't outline if we were going to get a specific dollar sign, after this user conference. We were really just focused on, do we have enough content to where our customers are going to be fully engaged for a 3-hour segment? And ironically, we got that, but we received more, where our sales team and our executive team actually said, wow, you were able to close X amount of revenue based on this virtual user conference.
Cool. Regarding the happy hours, are they outside regular work hours, during the work hours? How do you structure that?
That's a good question. So we took a step back and actually asked for feedback from our customers before actually outlining that date and the time. So we're kicking off from 3:30 to 5 p.m. And that's after taking a poll with our customers and actually talking with our guest speaker on what would be most beneficial for them. And so with everyone at home, we thought 3:30 would be ideal. It allows you to do your work. It allows you at that time to maybe do a break, especially if you have family. You still have time to cook dinner and spend time with them. But you also have that little segment where you can take a break and engage with your peers.
Cool. Anka is asking, what's your take on charging versus free, on virtual events, virtual summits, taking some kind of fee on that?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say with it being virtual, I personally wouldn't charge, just for the simple fact, if you look at your competitors or you look at your peers around you, no one else is charging. And then also you want to make sure that the content that they're receiving is valuable. And I think that if you give a good webinar and your product is doing quite well and you can actually give live demos, you'll receive your return automatically. And I would say if you wanted to charge a certain fee, I would look more into sponsorships. And so when you're looking at your different tiers of sponsorships, whether that's platinum, gold, or silver, if you want other vendors engaged with your virtual conference or different partners, I would say that would be worth giving a certain dollar sign, because you're giving free publicity for additional vendors.
Right. Well, we have a lot of questions. I think we're going to take two more and then we're going to move on to Hannah. And like I said, at the end, we're going to have time to, and Kalina hopefully will answer all your questions. If she doesn't, she'll mail the answers back to you. So a lot of questions about the happy hour. Let's take just two more. So one of them was, in the happy hour, does everybody have their video on? And another question regarding that, do you have any kind of mingling or networking during that happy hour? Like, how is that more structured? I think that was.
Yeah, that's a great question. So first question, we're also giving out different prizes, and we're playing around how to make it gamified. And one of the ideas that has come up is, who has the best virtual background? Meaning, of course, number one, you're going to show your face because you have to show the background. And so ideally, we're doing a few different competitions, giving out a few different prizes for the individuals that are looking to be engaged. So I think that number one, of course, it's great for you to share your screen. And I think that, gamifying and making it, fun for people will allow them to want to share their screen. So that's the route that we're going. And then the mingling perspective of it, we've actually designed a personalized Slack channel for the individuals and a personalized LinkedIn group just for this actual webinar. And it's going to be a series that's ongoing. So we're actually going to introduce that. So if people want to take side conversations offline, or if they want to follow up, they can actually have everyone join inside the community, especially on LinkedIn. And I think, Gail, you actually taught me that with Cravicate. As soon as everyone gets in a room, if anyone's ever worked with Gail or Cravicate, he'll have you pull your LinkedIn phone out and actually share with everyone that's in that room. So we're hoping that having the LinkedIn group and also having the private Slack group will keep people engaged, and also allow them to have additional questions and conversation throughout the virtual happy hour.
Great. So we'll stop here with the questions. Kalina, some of the people also asked if you can share the slides, not just the recording. So we'll let them know about that, but probably yes. Great. There's more questions for you. We'll move on to Hannah now, and then we'll get back to all those questions. Hopefully we'll do them all, even if we have to go over time.
Sure. Thanks all.
And meanwhile, Emma, Emma said that this was great. So she was thanking you, Kalina. So thank you for giving note on that, Emma.
Thank you. All right, let me share my screen.
You're on.
Hang on, I think I have the wrong one up there. Hold on. All righty. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Hannah Swanson, and I am the Community and Customer Marketing Manager at Splash. We're an event marketing platform built for scale. So you can probably assume that we've had a trying couple of months with everything that coronavirus has brought on, but we can get into that later. I joined Splash in the summer of 2019 to build out our customer marketing programs, most notably our user group programs, customer evidence and advocacy, and then just various other community stuff. Super excited to be here today and discuss how we've been handling the switch to virtual communities, and what we're doing to make sure that the customers attending really continue to get value and have this sense of connection and community, even though they're all sitting in the confines of their own homes like we're all doing right now. We were in a situation in mid-February that I'm sure a lot of you also felt like we had to switch our programs at the drop of a hat. I think the decisions to do a lot of things were happening in minutes. So I'll walk you through what that looked like. And I will preface everything by saying this is still very much a work in progress. We've been functioning in this new world for about 4 weeks now, but I am really optimistic about the programs and how they're going to continue to evolve and grow. So, let's see. Okay, so here's what our user groups looked like before coronavirus. I'll call it BC for now on. If you asked me like prior to joining Splash, how I would have built a user group program, I would have said digital first, create the demand without investing a ton of dollars. But then once we have a really active community in a digital forum, build out local chapters of user groups to actually bring people physically together. However, Splash is an event marketing program. We believe and have proof that there is nothing more powerful than the power of in-person and human connection. So we went all in on doing live user group meetups first, digital second. So over the course of Q3 of 2019, we built out a handful of local chapters around the US. We have about 9 right now. And these meetups would typically they would be hosted quarterly. They were customer led, and we would have typically about 2 hours of programmed customer content when they would share stories of like their use cases, say like how they're using a specific integration, their event marketing strategy, and you all know what kind of content is discussed at user groups. And then we would follow it with about an hour of networking. These are, like I said, we got there. We're talking BC, before coronavirus. All right. In about November of 2019, so we've been hosting these live user groups for about 3 months. It became really clear that attendees needed somewhere they could go after the meetups to continue the conversations, share files, and make introductions. At first, we toyed around with the idea of keeping all those conversations in a LinkedIn group. And that LinkedIn group was for all event marketing professionals, whether you were a customer or not. And, it didn't prove to foster that kind of like quick and like immediate conversation that the users really wanted. So we turned to Slack. So I created a free Slack community, or workspace, I should say. And anyone who had ever RSVP'd or attended a user group over the course of the past few months was invited to that group. This gave us about like 100 people. But the ongoing conversations we were hoping to get were definitely few and far between. To be honest, it was just a really great tool to connect with the customers that I chatted with daily and just keep it out of email. But there was definitely, like some product conversation. Hey, does anybody have experience doing this? Or, stuff like that. But it was growing, but it was slower than I would have hoped. So before I go into what changed, or do we have any questions in the Q&A? Are we good?
Yeah, so far we're good.
Okay, great. Enter Q1 of 2020. We had 7 live Splash user group meetups scheduled for Q1. We made it through 2, New York City and Seattle. Ironically, were the only ones live hosted in Q1. They were in early February, and we had a few weeks before the next one in March. I think it was around the first week of March, about maybe 8 to 10 days prior to the live event. It became real clear that no more live meetups were going to happen in Q1. And for it, honestly, probably Q2, for being totally honest. We still had Los Angeles, the Bay Area, our Mountain West chapter in Washington, D.C., and the California groups were the easiest decision to make because of the shelter-in-place orders. Of course, the first thought was like, do we cancel? Do we just throw the towel in and go all in on just the Slack workspace and customer evidence programs? Took a breath, and we're like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's go virtual. We'll make it work. So again, I want to preface everything with this is a work in progress, and everything we did, both myself and the customer leaders who are in charge of their chapters, with the goal of like done is better than perfect. Let's do it. We want to build these communities. We want to bring our customers together in a meaningful way. Let's make a decision and let's just go with it. And it can be trial and error, and that's okay. Like everyone is on the same page. Like we're all dealing with this feeling of uncertainty. So, you know, we knew if we spent too much time like noodling back and forth of, you know, what's the right platform, and do we do it on like on a real webinar platform like On24 or, you know, our GoToWebinar, or do we do it on Zoom? We landed on Zoom. Not even Zoom webinars, like good old fashioned Zoom video conferences, because our user groups are usually about like 25 to 30 people. That felt like the right decision. It was a manageable size to get on a conference call. And we, you know, I really drove home the fact for our speakers, you know, I was like, whatever content you had created for your live presentation probably isn't going to translate just, you know, and it's not going to land just like it would on a virtual chat, because you need to keep the audience engaged. You know, it's so easy when we're on Zoom to just like pick up our phones and just throw our faces in our phones and never look up and just wait for the recording. You know, so we modified some of the programs we did, like Kalina mentioned, with her therapy sessions. We said, you know what, obviously like a happy hour might be a little funny on Zoom. If it works, great. If it doesn't, let's kickstart that conversation with a group therapy session of how are all of you event marketers who are our customers handling this time? Like off the record, let's just talk. How are you actually feeling right now? And it proved to be really, really collaborative. Setting it up and making the actual switch from like a logistics perspective. Our user groups are all hosted on Splash. So that was actually the easiest part of this whole thing, was making the transition, was literally just going in Splash, or the customer leaders going in Splash and modifying the physical event address to the Zoom link, and sending out an email from our email tool that said, hey, everybody who's already registered, please update your calendar link. We're going virtual. Bring your fancy Zoom backgrounds because we're all going to be on video. Bring your questions, and you know, whatever you can do as a participant at a live meetup, try to think about how you can bring that sort of energy into the virtual event. We want you to ask questions. We want you to, you know, to get involved and not just be a face in the crowd. We want this to be as collaborative as it would have been if you were sitting in a conference room with 20 other people. The added bonus to that was that we were able to open up the invites to other community members outside of the local chapter's physical reach who wouldn't necessarily attended the live meetup or gotten an invite. For example, our Mountain West chapters typically only serve Salt Lake City, Utah, and Denver, Colorado. But we went virtual, so we opened it up, the invites for all users anywhere from Idaho to Arizona. So we also, I'll get to this here. This is the fun part and my favorite part of this whole thing, and I'm still watching it grow. Everyone, when they come to a Zoom conference, if they don't know everybody on the phone, which is most likely the case, not everyone's going to feel brave enough to come off of mute and interject in the middle of a presentation or during a therapy session or whatever. So we really leaned in hard to saying like, hey, if you want to connect with these people who presented or people in the audience after the virtual event, we have a Slack community for you. And we're all in there. You can direct message these, you know, the speakers, get files, and we're having live conversations about like what tools we're using, what strategies we're implementing right now. It's a really valuable tool for everyone to get in and just, you know, feel a little bit comfortable. And everyone, I think everyone on this line can probably attest to, we're all feeling this sense of like, of loss of community right now. And people are looking for places where they can engage. For us, Slack is working beautifully. In about 2 weeks, when I talked to Gail last week and kind of prepped this whole deck, I was like, you know, our Slack community has seen this like 150% growth in a week and a half. 200%. I literally have to keep the do not disturb button on because my Slack bot gives me notifications about every 5 minutes of new people joining. And the conversations that are happening in there are insane to watch. It's so wonderful. It's so collaborative, and I love it. I love watching it. So yeah, that's pretty much what we've done. Again, everything is a work in progress. Everything is a trial and error right now. But we keep driving home the fact that like we're all in this together. You know, we're looking for solutions and ideas to cut through the noise, because right now everyone's inbox is being flooded with webinar invites. So we're trying to really, you know, separate the virtual event of the user group from a webinar. Like, you're going to have a chance to talk. You're going to be able to participate. And hopefully it's all going to be okay. But it's a time for learning. I'm really excited about it. And quite honestly, I half expect a lot of our chapters to stay as hybrid meetups after all of this is over, because, and that by hybrid, I mean, whoever can gather in a room, great. And then we'll live stream that content to anyone who can't and wants to attend virtually. Because we just have more of a reach that way, and we can include more people. So that is all I have for my overview. If there are any questions.
No, we have some questions for sure.
Awesome.
So quite a few questions came up as you were talking. So let's take a few of them. First of all, slightly technical. If you have people registered to Splash, were you able to push that registered then to Zoom, or did you have to do it manually?
Yeah, so how we set it up in Splash, all I did was just switch the location, say from, I'll take our Mountain West chapter was supposed to be hosted at Pluralsight headquarters. I literally just switched it from the Pluralsight address to the Zoom link where the conference was going to be located. And then just like any other calendar invite, they would just click the link at the start of the event and we'd go.
Got it. Okay. Another question we have is, well, there's a question, can you share the Slack group? I guess that's somebody that Emma's asking that. Maybe she wants to join, I'm not sure.
For sure.
Take that off. Do you facilitate most of the conversations, or do they just work on organically? I think that's a great one. Like, who's managing the whole thing?
Absolutely. So when we are creating these user groups, virtually or live, whatever the venue, I am really trying to put the agenda creation in the customer leaders' hands. We are at the beginning stages of this whole program. Like I said, I only joined about 8 months ago, I think. And this program started with me. So we're in the process of building this out. And I'm really leaning hard into getting these chapter leaders to own that community and be the face of that community. Right now, I'm kind of like what we refer to internally as like playing God, where, you know, we might craft up some of the emails, but, you know, and help the chapter leaders craft the agenda and connect them with other speakers in the area to bulk up that agenda. But ideally, as the chapters grow and they become a little bit more self-sufficient and the communities they know each other, they can, you know, the leaders can work within their networks to, you know, extract speakers who want to present on a, you know, particular topic. And we give a ton of freedom. We do not say like, all right, it's, you know, you have to give your Splash use case story. You know, we have a whole list of like what might be good to talk about, but more times than not, I have conversations with customers and they're like, I really love this feature and this is what I did. And I want to tell this story of how I put together, you know, my field event program and took it global and scaled it up. And I want to talk about that. I'm like, great, go for it. When we have around 20 people in the room, the program content works beautifully. I will say in the smaller chapters, when sometimes it's, you know, not a giant city like San Francisco or Los Angeles, and there's a few less people in the room, about 10, the organic conversations just end up taking over anyway.
Okay. With customer communities becoming more active, how do you handle customers who have negative sentiment?
So luckily, we haven't really run into that. And I say that like totally honestly. You know, a lot of my team, a lot of the marketing team, a lot of the product team is in that Splash Slack community. So if there's ever someone who doesn't, you know, who doesn't understand something in the product and they need some support, you know, they have their CSMs, but sometimes they will come to the community and see if any other customers are dealing with a particular issue or struggling with something. And I will say, like, our product managers on our team are like so hot on those requests that if there is anything negative happening, or it's taken care of within like minutes. But we really haven't had anything like unsettling happen.
Again, we'll take one more question because we have quite a few of them here, and then at the end, again, both Kalina and Hannah will be happy, I guess, to answer more. How do you select and recruit chapter leaders? I guess that's relevant both in physical and in digital user groups.
That is a great question. So when we first started this whole thing, we identified we pulled up like all of our users and mapped them onto a Tableau map, like, of the US, and said, okay, you know, we have a ton of customers in New York City, San Francisco, and I think Seattle was the other one. And we tried to find champions in each of those locations just to start the group. Essentially, those were our nominated group leaders. So got them started. They held, you know, they each held a meetup. Went well. We started kind of putting this idea into market that, like, hey, Splash has user groups now. You know, here's what we're talking about. And, oh, hey, do you want to be a leader? We actually put a form right on our, if you go to splashthat.com/community, it's the global hub of all the chapters and any events. And there's also a CTA in there that just says, like, become a leader. And people can fill out a form. It gets routed right to me. And, you know, then I reach out to them and, you know, talk about their goals and what they want to do. And we decide if leadership is a right play for them. I will say, about of the 3 chapters that we started where we nominate any chapter that had a nominated leader, we have had some turnover. Because, you know, maybe expectations weren't, you know, of time investment were completely, you know, we didn't go into deep enough, or, you know, maybe the customer was like so excited about it and they're like, yeah, I totally want to do this. And then they did one and they're like, oh my gosh, this is actually a little bit more than I had anticipated. So, you know, whenever I have conversations with prospective leaders now, I go into it and saying, hey, this isn't a huge lift, but it's definitely an extracurricular activity that will require some hours, especially leading up to the meetup. Of the customers that have raised their hand to lead, we have had no turnover. So.
Cool. Okay, and again, we have like over 10 more questions, so hopefully we'll have time to go through them really quickly in a minute. So, I mean, I'll touch the last topic here, and I'll try to go quickly because I do want to answer all your questions at the end. So I think, I mean, both Kalina and Hannah talked about the digital aspects, right, of virtual events, virtual user groups, very important, engagement for communities, and I think that's amazing. All of these are very good things to do. I'm going to touch one more aspect, which is kind of the automation and the digital touch points that you could adopt with your customer base. I think, first of all, there are some assumptions that at least we operate with, our customers operate with, and I kind of want to run those by you, and hopefully you'll agree. So first of all, I would say that, you know, customer marketing during this crisis, marketing to your customer base is really an opportunity because, first of all, the fact that people are isolated physically doesn't mean that they want to be isolated socially. They actually, I think, more engagement than before in a way. Also, in most cases, they appreciate the fact, and we have some customers telling us about that and being surprised that they call their customers and, you know, or they email their customers or they reach out to the customers and the feedback they got. But most of your customers actually appreciate maintaining a relationship with the vendors even during the crisis. And the first two are the personal things, but the second two are basically because of the company, the business things. And the reason for that is that most companies, especially in tech, try to maintain or aspire to maintain business as usual. Remote, but business as usual. So the people inside those companies still want to be productive, still want to do their jobs. They still have a job to be done. And I think the last thing that we probably need to understand, of course, that companies will reduce spend. And when companies reduce spend, their customers, their existing customers, can be a great source of innovation. For example, if they reduce paid marketing, customers can do referrals or stuff like that for lead generation. That's, I mean, from all of that, the conclusion for us and for our customers is that, you know, your customers still have a job to be done. They still want to be in relationship with you, and they still look to have a dialogue. And with that, I think, you know, we can go into 3 things that we look at. So automating the engagement through digital touch points, loyalty and retention, and demand generation for your customer base. And again, I'll go through this quickly and hopefully leave some time for questions. So first of all, let's talk about automating the engagement. I think in that sense, what you need to understand really is that there are many digital touch points, right? And I'm going to go here for a minute, but think about it. Every company, definitely SaaS companies, they have so many products, like, right, they use Splash for user groups perhaps, and they use Zoom for meetings or webinars like we do here. And they have a knowledge base for their customers, maybe on Confluence, and they have, you know, a customer portal, a support site by Zendesk. They might have, you know, of course, their own product, their own dashboard, a community that runs on Lithium, Salesforce community, of course, the website, the blog. I mean, there's so much tech out there that is all touch points with your customers. Most B2B companies have between 10 to 20 different touch points with their customers, right? So think again of that. If there are so many touch points, how can we actually track people? It's a digital word. Let's track people through these touch points. And that's basically what we're saying. You need to aspire to map all those touch points. Look at all the different places that your customers are touching you digitally because you're not meeting them face to face, and map them out. Then try to define this post-sale journey. Say, okay, if we have these 10 touch points, let's think which users are going to which of those touch points, who's in the user group, who is in the forum, who's in the Zoom meetings, who's in the customer virtual event, who's in the dashboard, who's in the training portal. And based on those mappings, think what you can do with them in those places. How can you foster the relationship? How can you maintain the dialogue? And then you just engage customers real times in those touch points, for example, with in-app messages, pop-ups, whatever, but make it a dialogue, right? Make it chatty, make it conversational. Like Drift is saying, you know, today marketing is a lot conversational. So do that in a way that you're not, so you can ask them, how do you feel with everything going on? What kind of help can we give you, right? You can go on that aspect, but you can also ask other questions and we'll talk about that. So that's the one thing that I think that really works. Understanding that there's a digital pattern, a digital journey, that if you tie to that journey and map it, you could actually create a dialogue across that journey, even though it's, you know, a no-touch world. The other thing is, and the second topic, and I realize that I'm doing this pretty quickly, but I mean, is around loyalty and retention. So first of all, loyalty-wise, this is a great time to ask Advocacy. People are at their homes. You can ask them for quotes. You can ask them for reviews on review sites. You can ask them for selfie videos. Ask them for things that are small. They can do it 10 minutes at home. It builds up their loyalty. It builds up their relationship. And they're probably happy to do that right now. What we see is that people are very happy to do that at this time because, again, it generates some kind of dialogue, some kind of relationship with the vendor. It's another thing to do from home, right? The other thing you could do is share their achievements, right? Both their own achievements, this is how you succeeded with our product, and also how other companies succeed with our product. Of course, there's a customer success play here, and customer success can talk to products, but I mean, as a marketing, you should also think of that. Let's find a way to take, for example, a dashboard report of each customer and send it to them, of their achievements or stuff like that. You have to gauge satisfaction, right? So you can start with empathy and say, how are you doing these times and these days? How can we help? But then you can also go on, what about our product? Like, it doesn't matter if it's a smiley versus a frowny, an NPS, a stars, but just try to gauge their satisfaction, how they're doing. Just remember, especially if NPS, the fact that they're not happy, somewhat is you know, influenced by external events. You know, they just, reality is shit, you know, it is what it is. And that impacts their satisfaction. And some of it is really with your products, but create that dialogue. How can we help? What can we do different? What would you like to see in our product to make you more productive and help you while you work from home? Stuff like that. And just to show that eventually some of the things that we look at, and this is an example campaign just to talk about retention. So you can look, there's a cohort on the left of 600 customers that, you know, got the regular customer emails and the regular stuff. But then there's a cohort of customer that came into a retention mindset and had specific emails and specific pop-ups about their, you know, about retention, about how they're doing, about their success. And you could see, you know, whether they were just in the nurturing, they opened it or they clicked it, you know, they were engaged. You can reduce anywhere from 4% to 16%. And we're going to have a webinar on that in 3 weeks, just about how we do retention marketing, just about how we do upsell expansion with customer base. But I'm just saying, this is a great time to show them the value of what they've done for the product and to focus on how you retain them, how you keep them loyal, much more than just getting new customers. And lastly, we talked about demand generation. So, I mean, the easiest thing to do is ask for referrals, right? You have less paid marketing, you're doing less, you know, demand generation from that. So ask your customers if they can refer a friend, whether they do it on social and they tell people about a great trial that you have or a sign up, free sign up, whatnot, whether they just register a lead, whether they're willing to get on a call with a reference or something like that, or just send an email to you. You know, it doesn't have to be that official. It can also be an email between them and a friend of theirs and yourself, CC, thinking that maybe you should go on a discussion. But asking your customer that, saying, hey, listen, because of the situation right now, we'd really fine. And you give them acknowledgement for the fact that they're doing it. You can give them, of course, rewards for their work. But I mean, being able to do that in these times helps your company keep on moving demand generation, even though they reduced costs. And I mean, for us, and again, this will kind of finish because of time. For us, we look at, you know, customer marketing is everything post-sale. It's a life cycle. You can help customers with onboarding at these days through digital touch points. You can build communities, and maybe communities are growing faster these days. You could create advocacy, customer feedback, marketing communications designated to your customer base, not the general communication, not the general newsletter. All of these things are great things to do right now because, again, your customers are looking for those digital touch points. So yeah, I mean, with that, I'll just say that, you know, Crowdfocate is a customer marketing platform. We love to do these events, webinars, user groups. We do meetups when we can physically do so. There's a Slack channel, which I'll be happy to join anybody who wants to join from the customer marketing domain. And we're happy to be answering any questions. With that, I think I'll add the session and have 5 more minutes or 10 more minutes for quick Q&A. And I'll start shooting questions. And whoever wants to stay overboard beyond time, so we answer all the questions, we'll be happy to do that. So I'll take a few more with you, Hannah, because there's quite a few that we didn't answer, and then go back to Kalina. So Colette was asking, do you have any issues with your customers who might be competitors and, you know, joining the Slack group or stuff like that? I mean, do you have any way that you limit your competitors from joining your communities, your Slack groups, stuff like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, you know, I'll preface this with saying our customer base and our like total addressable market is literally anyone who hosts events. Company size is almost irrelevant. So we're talking anybody from B2B, high tech, all the way to like retail and everything in between. So yes, the possibility of having customer competitors in that Slack channel are super real. You know, I can't say this program that we've started is not very old at all. And this Slack community, I think I was scrolling through the other Q&A. You know, this Slack community is only becoming so active right now because of the massive growth in the past couple of weeks. So we really haven't run into a lot of situations yet. And I say yet because I know it will happen, where we do have competitors on the line and, you know, they don't want to share their strategy for obvious reasons. We haven't gotten there yet. So truthfully, I couldn't give you a solid answer of how we handle it. I will say when we're promoting user group invitations, you know, if the customer leader has the total right to say, hey, I don't want to invite anyone from, you know, acme.com email domain. And that is because they lead that chapter. We're like, yep, that's totally fine. So, but at the Slack, you know, at the Slack community level, I think it's kind of well known that, you know, you might encounter a competitor in here, and like, that's okay. I'm a member of a field marketing Slack community, and every single one of our competitors is in there, and I still feel comfortable sharing, you know, what we're doing, because, you know, I would like to set the stage at, you know, as we're the trusted advisors, we're the professionals, we're doing innovative things, and, you know, to the same thing of our customers, like, our customers are doing innovative things, and they should feel comfortable sharing those, and position themselves as the expert, no matter what the competitors are doing. So
I'll take one more question for Kalina, because I think she needs to leave at the end. I don't know, Hannah, if you could stay.
I can say, yeah, I can say.
And one more thing just to say before we go, everybody, thank you for joining. Like I said, we're going to stay overboard. Kalina and Hannah, thank you so much for your time and sharing your experience. I appreciate it. Kalina, last question for you. How do you track the revenue from the event? How do you track the fact that the revenue was generated?
Yeah, so I have everything inside Salesforce as a full campaign. So everything is tracked all the way from the vendor that we chose, the different prizes that we gave out, and then also all the opportunities that are created are tied back into that campaign. So we can run a full report that highlights the money that we put in from an organization, from a marketing perspective, because we have to share the budget. And then also all the opportunities that are created and closed also get tagged and tracked back to the original virtual conference campaign.
Cool. You have another minute, so I'll shoot another one. How did you handle, from Kimberly, how did you handle Q&A? I mean, did you allow folks to talk and chat? For example, pose questions?
Yeah, that's a good question.
What was the whole process for that?
Yeah, so we actually had like a virtual conference thinking room. We had 2 thinking rooms, half for our product team and then the other half for marketing and sales. And so we tag team and had like our BDRs on point for them to answer any questions that came in. And if we had any live requests to have a demo right away, then those BDRs took on that. And then the only thing that I think we actually could have did better on, some of the questions that came in, some of our guest speakers that were customers had to drop off early. And so those questions that came in, if we couldn't answer them, we actually connected them with the customer's permission. And actually did the follow-up so they could take it offline or have a follow-up call. But we basically had, 2 different rooms, had targeted people that were ready to answer any questions. And then you could have private chat boxes inside the virtual conference venue that you choose. And then we gave a training to all of the internal folks ahead of time so they were prepared.
Got it, yeah. And I also just launched the poll for the survey for all of those of you who can still answer that and get the prizes. We're happy to do that. So Kalina, thank you very much for your time. Hannah, if you could stay, we'll have another 2 questions.
For sure.
Thank you.
First of all, thank you. So I mean, Hannah, for you, other questions that we had around, we still have quite a lot of people online. So other questions that we have, do you use any community platform outside of Slack? If so, which one?
We do not yet. So, my goal is to eventually get there, but our community is still, it's still growing, and we need to prove that this is a viable investment for the company, in the long run to make an investment into another platform. But that's my goal, and I'm hoping to get there. So if there's anybody on the line that wants to pitch me, I'm all ears.
So, I mean, another thing is that we have, do you provide content or format guidelines for your user groups leaders? Or, how do you get them to facilitate the conversation?
Yeah, so I have literally right now is a Google Doc. I actually transcribed it onto a splash page. And so I can just drop them a link instead of share them over a Google Doc. Of all things that we recommend to prepare for an event. So everything from, here's the room size that you should get, plan for 25 to 30 people. That's based on like how many users we know we have in all of our metro areas, what would be realistic to show up. And, everything from that to food and beverage recommendations and where we provide budget, where we don't provide budget. To be totally transparent, we don't give venue budget, we do give food and bev. And then down to, a sample agenda. So we give them, you know, whenever they want to host it on time of day based on what they think is best, whether they're in like a commuter town or somewhere like New York City where people want to go out after work. You know, we tell them, hey, lunch event, breakfast event, dinner, all yours, you know, totally up to you. And then we seed some content examples their way of like what we've seen work well at other groups, you know, what we've maybe seen that didn't necessarily work, that didn't foster a lot of Q&A or, you know, audience collaboration. And we also give them the option to say, hey, I want someone from Splash here to come and present, you know, ideally on this topic. So for example, our DC community wanted to have their whole meetup in Q1 focused on integrations, the integrations that our platform supports, which, you know, CRM, marketing automation, our Slack integration, and then have a solutions consultant come there and say, all right, here's the world of integrations, and then have customers present on how they've leveraged specific ones in there. But, you know, I'm lucky enough to have awesome customer leaders that are really, really entrepreneurial in spirit and want to create their own agendas and really just use me as a sounding board. Oop, Gail, you might be frozen.
Yeah.
You're back.
Sorry.
No worries.
We still have people there, but yeah. Okay, I think we'll take the last question because we're quite overboard, and I'll just send you all the questions later on for people. So another question that we have is like on Slack again. Do you monitor the whole discussion, keep the pulse with your own questions, your own discussions, like kind of manage the community and stuff like that? How do you manage the whole thing?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm there to keep a pulse and to see if anybody has any like, or, you know, burning questions. That being said, I try to let another customer get in there first and reply with an answer because, you know, I want to make sure that this Slack community stays as a customer platform and not a Splash support hotline, which that's a fine line. So, you know, we have our product managers in there. We even have some support staff in there. We do not broadcast that they're in there. You know, we really want to get those customers chatting with each other, and it's working well. We have created, or I've created, and even some customers have created different channels. I have one specifically that is #SplashResources, where I put all our new blog posts, any upcoming webinars, you know, anything that we're producing from like a demand gen perspective that people can grab and go check out if they want to, but it's not sitting there being published in like the general channel that everyone is just getting hit with notifications for, because that's not the purpose of this. We have plenty of marketing channels in other ones that we can tap into. We don't need to, you know, to start throwing them all at our customers in yet another channel.
Cool. Okay. I mean, again, there's more than 10 other questions here that we haven't answered, but I mean, we're like 5 minutes overboard. So I think what we'll do again is we'll have some way that we email all of these. We'll do a Google Docs with all the questions and answers and then send it to everybody. I think that would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you everybody for your time again. I appreciate it. We still have over 40 people online, just so you know. So I mean, it's pretty amazing. And people still answering the poll, but I mean, thank you a lot, Hannah, for your time.
Thank
for
you.
all the tips. And again, everybody will just have a doc for all of you for all your questions and answers. That would be the best way, probably. So thanks a lot, and we'll get those answers for you early next week. Let's see, we have something in the chat. Thank you all from Amco. Okay.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.